Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today on the Spanish Golden Visa, where we're going to talk through a lot of the changes that have happened, and there have been many, and really see where we stand with it. So let me just share the presentation. I'll get that ready. I'll just let a few other people join us. So bear with me a second. Right, here we go. So if I give you a little bit of introduction to everyone about myself and what sort of brings me in front of you. Okay, so today, obviously, we're going to talk about the Spanish Golden Visa. And as you'll be aware, we know that there's going to be changes. It's going to be withdrawn. But really what a lot of people have been asking is when is that going to happen? Is there still time? Can I still do it? Lots of questions like that. And we do have very up-to-date information today, which you will find useful. So I will go through all of that. Now, just to a few sort of housekeeping bits here. You've obviously got my name at the bottom here. I'm one of the Golden Visa specialists here at Holborn. I specialize in the Spanish Golden Visa, but as a company, we do all the different Golden Visas. So not just Spain, we do Portugal, we do the USA, all around the world, all the different visas we do. But I'm concentrating today on the Spanish Golden Visa. It really is the one that a lot of people are looking at the moment because there's lots of unique benefits to the Spanish Golden Visa, and we'll go through that today. The best way to contact me if you are interested in having a free consultation, I put my number at the bottom of the screen there. So it's a UK number, which is 00447969059122. I'm actually based here in Spain, not in the UK. You can get me on WhatsApp, or you can phone me on that number or text me, and I can schedule in an appointment. I know a lot of people watching this are maybe from countries outside of the EU, so obviously there is a time difference there. So what we can do is schedule that in for you, make sure that you that we can see you at the time that you need to be seen. So we'll go through all of that today. I'll save any questions towards the end, if that's okay. So anybody that has any questions, we'll address that. What we will do as well is we'll send out a copy of this presentation at the end, so you'll have a copy of this if there are any questions, and obviously you can WhatsApp me or message me on that number as well. Okay, so let's get started then. What I want to go through today really are the changes to the Spanish Golden Visa, and that really is what most people are interested in. So what do we know so far? How will that impact you? Will you still have time? So we'll cover all of that. We'll also talk about what the Spanish Golden Visa is. So it's basically a residency by investment program. We'll just explain what that means, because there is residency by investment. There's also citizenship by investment, and they are different things. The Spanish Golden Visa scheme is a residency by investment scheme, but it can be changed into citizenship. So I'll talk you through that as well. I'll talk about the Spain Gold Visa program, so what you need to do if you want to qualify for it, if there is time, which I'll go through, what the process are, so how long does it actually take to get it through, so how long to actually get this Golden Visa, what the timeline would look like, and what benefits you would get from that as well. I'll give you some examples of options that are available for you as well. So what options are out there, just give you a little bit of a showcase of that as well. And if we do have time, I'll do questions and answers. If we don't have time, obviously I'll put my number up at the end. After this meeting, I've actually got another meeting where I'm going to find out a little bit more about anything else that we know in terms of the timeline. So I'll get through everything I can today, but obviously feel free to message or WhatsApp me after. So just to talk about what we know so far. So just sort of going back to the beginning of this year, around April time, the Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, essentially said, we are going to eliminate the Golden Visa program. Okay, now the main reason for that, again, as I'm sure a lot of you would have read and be aware, was the economic effect that it was having, mainly in the form of house prices. So, the idea of people pumping money in to buy property is raising their house prices, and this makes it unaffordable for the citizens of Spain. If you're going to be a little bit look at an alternative point of view for this, or be a little bit maybe pessimistic on this, is that it's unlikely to have an effect on the house prices. If you look at last year, how many Golden Visas were issued, it was only around 0.5% of transactions were linked to a Golden Visa. So the argument would be, if you withdrew the Golden Visa, is it really going to have much of an effect? Maybe not, but with the new government coming in here in Spain, then obviously I think it was more of a show that we are doing something about this rather than actually having an effect, which I'll come on to maybe why this is having a bit of an effect now and how long it's actually taking. So this was back in April. So obviously now we're sort of into October. So it's taken a long time even to get to the point we are now. On July the 24th, we got an update. This was a couple of months ago in terms of what the timescales were for this. So what we were looking at, but we know a little bit more, as I say again now. And it is important to say, and I will say at this point, as of today, as of now, everything remains the same. So how the Spanish Golden Visa program was, that is still the same. So although they've announced that changes will happen and it will be eliminated, as of now, it's exactly the same as what it was previously, which I will come on to what that involves. It's also important to look at what this means for if you are an existing Spanish Golden Visa holder. Now, I'd imagine a lot of people watching this webinar may not have the Spanish Golden Visa, hence why they're watching the webinar. But it's important for you to know if you do get the Spanish Golden Visa, how would it be affected now that we know it is eventually going to be withdrawn? Would it affect you? Well, under Spanish law, no. They can't retrospectively take a benefit like that away from you. It's written into the contract, it's written into the law. So once you are granted the Spanish Golden Visa, under the terms and conditions that you're granted it, as of now, it can't be changed at a later point and taken away from you. So if you're in, you are in. So again, it's the urgency on this. And again, it's not to pressurize people to doing something, but it's to be aware that if you are in, you've got it. If you don't do, you need to do it now. If you're going to do it, don't leave it. But once you're in, and it can't be taken away. Okay, so that's for how they treat people with these sort of benefits. Now, let me go back. Sorry. Right. In terms of what we know and how that's going to change. So what we've heard is that we are now hitting, as of up to September the 9th, so as of last month, it was in what they call an amendment phase. So what essentially the amendment phase meant is that you could put suggestions in and what are they going to do? What are we going to do to the Spanish Golden Visa? So are we going to eliminate it totally? Are we going to just change parts of it? What are they going to do essentially to the Spanish Golden Visa? That's now been completed. So this phase of going back and forth in terms of what they've got to do has been done. And we're now in a legislative phase. So we're in the next phase. So the amendment phase, essentially now it's been done. And what the idea is now is they want to completely withdraw the Spanish Golden Visa. And that doesn't just mean by property. So it doesn't just mean with the withdrawal of property as an option. It means a withdrawal of everything. So there are other ways that you can get a golden visa in Spain. It's not just property. You can invest into a fund, you can invest into bank accounts, and that will give you the golden visa. They've all got different qualifying amounts, which I'll come on to. But the idea really of what the government wants to do is get rid of it in its entirety. So get rid of it all. Now, it's not as simple as doing that because now it's gone into the legislative phase. It has to go back and forth. It has to be approved and ticked off by all parties, essentially. And at the moment, it is going back and it's going forth and it's going back and it's going forth. And you've got the right-wing politicians, you've got the left-wing politicians, and they don't agree. They are going back and forth in terms of what they want to do and how they're going to implement it. Initially, the idea was to implement it under an existing law. So essentially amending an existing law, which would make it easier for them to do, as opposed to writing in a new law to get rid of it. Again, this is going maybe more into more detail of what you need to know. But the idea of writing a new one is a lot more complicated. But as I say, at the moment, the update we got a week or so ago, I've got a meeting later today, see if I can find out any more information. So again, please stay in contact with me on the number again at the end. We will send this out and I will keep you updated into the emails you've given us. I'll keep you updated on any changes. But as it stands at the moment, they can't agree on what to do. So the update that we had yesterday, is there still time? And that seems relatively vague because you'll think, well, how much time have we actually got? Well, we're thinking well into next year. So when I say well into next year, you need to be mindful of the time scales that this takes to go through. So if you started an application now, how long will it take to get the application through, which I will come on to. And that is the important part, okay? But we think it's going to be well into next year by the time it actually gets withdrawn. And the likelihood is when it does get withdrawn, if you're already in the system and you've already started the process, it's very unlikely they're going to say, no, we're not going to no longer continue that process. As long as you're in there and you started the process of buying the property or whatever route you're going, then it will be honoured. Part of the reason we know that, there is an element of guesswork to what we do, but a part of the reason that we know that is that last year, again, you may be aware of this, is Portugal, because we do the Portugal Golden Visa as well, a very popular Golden Visa scheme. But the Portugal Golden Visa was also withdrawn around a similar time at the beginning of the year last year. That had to go through various stages, similar to what's happening here in Spain. It took a long time. But once it actually went through to all the getting it signed off, if you like, in terms of the law and the sign-off part of it, as long as you had started the process, it would be honoured. So we think the similar thing will happen with Spain. But again, we don't know. There is an element of guesswork with this. But the important thing about this really is that if you're going to want to do it now. We will get it through. So anybody that uses us, and I'll come on to what we do, we will get it through for you. And there are certain unique benefits with Spain, which means even if you're not planning to move over here for a couple of years, you can do it now and you don't have to spend any time in Spain in order to get your golden visa and keep your golden visa. So even if you do it now, it can be for a plan you've got in the future. So as I say, in summary, I don't have a slide for this. We tried to put one together, but it's too complicated. But essentially, it will go into next year. You will have time if you apply now. Over the coming month or two even, you will have time. But like with anything, if it's something you're looking to do, you need to do it sooner rather than later. Now, I just want to talk a little bit about our service because this is really important. We do the whole start to end service. So it's an end-to-end service. So we do everything in terms of finding the investment opportunity for our clients. We are first and foremost an investment company. So at Holborn Assets, we started off around 25 years ago as an investment company. So we specialize in investments. Around 6 or 7 years ago, we started Holborn Pass, where we're essentially looking at the option of investments to get you the golden visa. So that's what we've concentrated on in this sort of department that I'm in now. So importantly with this means that we look at what the best investment opportunities. We're very good at doing that. We do the whole process. We've got a 100% success rate in getting through all applications. It is not just with Spain. This is with Portugal and all the programs that we do, which I'll come on to, because obviously moving forward, when Spain is no longer an option, people will be looking to what are the other options, and I'll go through what the other options are. But we'll concentrate on Spain today. But we do the whole process. So we will identify the opportunity, the investment opportunity. Now we focus on property because property is the cheapest way to get the golden visa by quite a considerable way. So we could concentrate on property. And actually what we do mainly concentrate is on commercial property. And I'll come on to why that is. The main reason being is it is a lot cheaper to buy and have a commercial property than it is to have a residential property. And we fully manage the property for our clients. So essentially it is an investment which you don't need to get involved in, which gives you the golden visa. And I'll come on to that. But we carry out all the due diligence for the properties. We do residential properties as well. I will say that. But with residential properties, quite often people, if you're going to move to Spain and know where you're going to live, then actually to buy a residential property is easier to do it yourself than to use someone else. We're looking at investment opportunities, and commercial is a lot cheaper. And a lot of that is to do with the transfer taxes in Spain, which I will come on to. We will appoint lawyers. So we do all the due diligence with the lawyers on the projects and the developments that we look at. We will get you a Spanish bank account as well. We prepare all the sales agreements as well. We get you your NIE number, which is your tax number. So we do all that as well. We file your tax returns for you as well on an annual basis here in Spain. You don't have to be tax resident in Spain, but we will file your tax returns as well. We'll manage your asset for you as well. So essentially, you don't need to get involved with it at all. And we will, of course, do the application to get you the golden visa, which is the most important thing. Now, with us, we've got a 100% record, as I mentioned before, in terms of getting applications through. So we know exactly what we need to do to get an application through for the golden visa. There's obviously, which I'll come on to, you can tag in family members, all that sort of thing to your application. But obviously, you need to know what you need to submit in order to do that, and that's why we've got a dedicated team here behind the scenes here for administration. We use a company called Orients. So you deal with us, but Orients are very good because they were founded back in 2013 when the Spanish golden visa started. And they know exactly what you need to get everything through. We have all the contacts that are actually based here in Spain, in Barcelona and in Madrid, and we know exactly what we need. Also, we're on the ground to look at the investment opportunities here as well. But the summary to this is we do the whole process from start to finish. We will get the documents from you. You don't have to come over here to Spain. We will do it all remotely, so we get you to do a power of attorney and essentially do the whole process for you without you having to come over here. There is a point you will have to come over here, which I'll come on to, but you don't have to come over initially to do the application and to actually get the golden visa. You don't need to come over here, which I'll come on to. So that's the service that we provide. Now, really importantly, we need to look at what the timeline is of the Spanish golden visa and what it would look like. Now, this is the timeline that we use with us. If you did it yourself, it would be similar, but bear in mind it would probably take longer because you would have to do a lot of the admin side of it yourself. So what would initially happen is that we would find the asset for you. So normally, as I say, it would be a commercial asset, could be residential, but the way we are at the moment in terms of the level of demands we're having is we will concentrate on commercial because as an investment company, that is the best investment option. But we will identify that asset for you. We get you to sign a power of attorney, which basically gives us the right to sign on your behalf, to do the purchase on your behalf. We get you your NIE number here, as it says at the top. So the NIE number is your tax number because you need that in order to purchase the property. We then open the bank account for you, so we can do that remotely. We use Santander, but again, we can do that remotely. You don't have to come over here. What you would do around month 1.5 is you would transfer your funds over here to your Spanish bank account. We then get the deeds done and register the property, and that's normally around month 3. So around this point here, if you can see the cursor, that's really when we submitted everything. We've got your name on the deeds. You then own that property. We register that property in your name, and that normally takes 3 months. So if you're looking now, that's taking you to the end of the year. Okay, it depends on when you watch this video. I will upload it to my YouTube channel, by the way. Obviously, you can find the information on there. It depends on when you're watching this, but obviously now we're in October. That will be the end of the year. We then book an appointment at the consulate. You don't have to come over, but what that does is it essentially means we apply for your golden visa. Now, the law in Spain is once you apply for that golden visa, you hold that asset. We apply for the golden visa. They have to respond within 21 days by law. So 21 days, they will give you the golden visa. Now, if they don't respond in 21 days, it's deemed that you've got the golden visa because they have to do it by law. So again, we're looking at 3 to 4 months that you will have a stamp in your passport. If you can see the section, a stamp that will be in your passport that's valid for 1 year. That means you can stay in Spain as long as you want. There's no time requirements on coming in or leaving. You are essentially a golden visa. You've got a golden visa for a year at that point. Okay. Now, that point, as I say, you've got the flexibility of the golden visa, but it's only for 1 year. So obviously, what we then need to do is convert that into the golden visa, which is then for 3 years, and then you renew it every 5 years. That's how it normally goes. But initially, it's for 1 year. But the reason for that is after that point, you would essentially have to come over to Spain at some point over the coming months. It's not the worst place to come. It's quite nice. You get the timing right to come over here, certainly during the winter and other places, come over to Spain. But you need to do your biometrics appointment, and that is basically doing your fingerprints. You have to do your photograph, all that sort of thing. And we actually accompany you to that. So we would book the appointment for you. We will come along and help you do it because obviously quite often it's the translation, that sort of thing makes things difficult. I've lived here for 6 years. We're in the Malaga region here in Spain, and I had to go through this process. And I tried to do it on my own, and it was now impossible. So I had to actually get somebody to come and help me do it, just because the way Spain's good at a lot of things, but certainly some of the administration side of things here can be a little bit more tricky than some other countries. So bear that in mind. But we'll help you through that whole process. So normally it then takes another 2 to 3 months after you've got that stamp here to get your biometrics, and then you will get your residency card. So you will have your TIE, your golden visa card, similar to what I've got, which basically gives you the right to live, to work, to move around, which I'll come on to here in Spain. It's initially for 3 years, but you renew it and then it's renewed every 5 years. There's no massive fees to renew in it. It's important to say that. It's not one of these things you go along to renew and there's loads of fees. There's not. You don't need to prove incomes and that sort of thing. At the beginning of the application process, we do need to get quite a bit of information off you, information of where you're working, all the sort of thing you need to make the application. But we would talk you through that whole process. But you're looking for the whole process, start to finish, 6 to 7 months. As I mentioned before, with the withdrawal of the golden visa, you'd expect within 3 months to actually have the stamp in your passport anyway, because you'd own that asset. So we have time to do this. But the longer we leave it going into next year, obviously the less chance or the less time we're going to have, so bear that in mind. But we have the time to do it just based on our past experience. We know that we will get everything through for anyone that's applying. So just talk about the program and what it gives you. So there's citizenship and there are residency programs. And the idea of this, again, it might sound very basic to you, but the idea, an investor will contribute to a foreign country either through real estate, through donating, through investing in a business, investing in funds, investing in bonds, that country. And by investing in that country, in return, they will give you the rights of residency or the rights of citizenship. Now, this is where you differentiate between the two. Now, Spain is a residency program. So what that means is that in exchange for investing, you are given that golden visa card, and that gives you the right to live, to work, to retire in Spain. It doesn't give you the right to vote and a few other things you can't do, but for all intents and purposes, you live in Spain, you retire in Spain, you don't need to work in Spain, you can work, you don't have to work, you can do what you want. But you get that card. After 10 years, you can change that into a passport, and I'll come on to that. In fact, you can change it into a passport in only 2 years, depending on where you are actually from. So what passport you hold now. If you are an ex-Spanish colony passport when you apply, so maybe somewhere like Mexico, Brazil, a number of other countries, there are lots of them, and I'll go on to it, then essentially it's only 2 years you can convert that to a passport. For most of people like me, I'm from the UK, it's 10 years. But anyway, it's a residency program first and foremost, because you're not immediately given citizenship. Now, basically, citizenship programs are you getting a passport. So essentially, what you could do in Spain after 10 years is convert that to the passport and become a citizen. But initially, it's a residency program. There are citizenship programs, whereas they tend to be more the Caribbean countries, which we do as well. You can invest it in them, and you are given the passport straight away, and you have the rights to vote, live, work, everything. And whatever that passport gives you, you can then do because you've got that passport. Normally in the EU, they tend to be residency programs with the option to convert to citizenship later, because obviously the EU, once you've got an EU passport, you can travel completely freely across borders with none of the 90 and 180-day rules and all that sort of thing. So you really have to prove normally with the residency programs that you are committed to that country before you can change it to citizenship. But that's the difference. Some people don't really want the citizenship. You don't need it. Once you've got that residency card, every 5 years you can renew it and you can just keep it forever. Once you're in, as I mentioned before. These are the different programs we do. And it's a really busy slide, this, but it's important just to talk around it because obviously we know there are changes coming in. So I just want to talk you through the different programs. So if you look at it at the top, you've got the citizenship programs here on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we've got residency programs. Now, we do all the different programs, okay? So on citizenship programs, so this would be by investing money, various different amounts depending on the country, you're given the passport of that country after a period of time, normally 4 months, as you can see at the top here, some of them a little bit longer. And they're different varying amounts. But obviously the passports, and again, this is not being derogatory to these countries, but normally the passports of some of these countries aren't as strong as maybe having a passport of Spain or Portugal, somewhere like that, which gives you far more rights and is a far more strong passport. So these are the citizenship programs that we do. So again, anybody interested in this, we do all this for people as well. We specialize in that. We're looking here at the residency programs, and in particular, Spain here. So the residency programs, we've got Malta, Portugal, Greece, USA, Spain, and the UAE. Now, with Malta and with the UAE, you can't change these into citizenships. You can't change these into passports. But with Portugal, Greece, the USA, and Spain, you can. Now, the most popular one, and I'll tell you this because obviously some people will look to Portugal. Portugal's always been the most popular up until last year. I think Spain's now kind of up there with Portugal, but Portugal's always been a very popular scheme. And then I'll come on to Spain in a second. But let me speak about Portugal. With Portugal, once you've got the investment that you need, and the investment is a minimum 500,000, but you can't invest in property in Portugal. They got rid of that last year. So when I said they withdrew the scheme last year, they withdrew the option of investing into property, but you can invest into funds. And a fund it's lots of rules around this. It's very complicated, but as an investment company, there are ways of doing it. We've got investment funds that qualify, and we can actually do it instead of 500,000. We can actually do it for as little as 325,000 by having funds that essentially pay interest up front. It's very complicated, and I won't go into it now. But the 500,000 is the minimum for Portugal, but you can actually do it for as little as 325,000. But again, that's not why you're here. After 5 years with Portugal, you can change that residency to the passport. Okay, that you do have to come over to Portugal. It's averages about a week a year, so it's not too much, and you can change it into a Portuguese passport. So again, if this is something you're interested in, we can speak to you about that as well, not just the Spanish one. Certainly the Portugal one, because that had changed last year, is going to continue to be the same as what it is really for the foreseeable, because it's gone through the change. And they're just encouraging people to invest into funds. You can invest into, it gets very complicated, but yeah, that's a conversation for another time. What we're going to look at here is Spain. So just to look at Spain, so you can change your Spanish residency into citizenship, so into the passport after 10 years. However, if your ex-Spanish colony passport, when you apply for the golden visa, you can actually change it into as little as 2 years. So if you have an ex-Spanish colony passport, it's absolute no-brainer to do the Spanish golden visa, because you could actually have an EU passport in 2 years. But you do have to spend more than 6 months a year in Spain during that 2 years in order to convert it to the passport. So you have to prove that you want to live here. That's for more than 6 months a year. That makes you tax resident. However, if you don't, if you're not ex-Spanish colony and you're not bothered about changing it to citizenship, you don't have to, and you don't have to spend any time at all. Once you've got the golden visa, you don't have to spend any time at all in Spain. You can literally get the property now that you need to qualify. You can get the cards, so therefore you have the right to come over and live and stay when the time is right for you, but you don't actually have to do it immediately. So this is why it's so good to do it now if it's something you're looking to do. So that's the Spanish one, and the minimum is 500,000, but you can invest into property. The property can be anywhere in Spain. It could be on the Spanish islands as well. Now, the interesting thing here, which is what we've done, because we can do various things with Portugal in terms of doing it for less money and having interest paid up front, we've actually put together various packages with Spain in terms of commercial property where you're paid rental income up front. So essentially, we will look at a commercial property for the 500,000, but actually you only have to invest 350,000 and you have rental income paid up front, which I'll come on to go in a bit more detail about. But essentially, it's 10 years rental income up front at the rate of 3% a year. So that gives you 150,000, so 3% a year for 10 years. On the 500,000, we'll give you the 150,000 up front. I'll come on to that in a bit more detail a little later on in the presentation. So although it's 500,000, and that is the actual minimum, in terms of you have to have a property for 500,000, we can actually do it by you investing less. There are costs in terms of you have to pay legal fees, taxes, that sort of thing, which can make it a little bit more, obviously. But for all intents and purposes, it's 350,000. So that's something we do. Or you can just invest a straight 500,000, and I'll come on to how that works. The good thing about Spain as well, okay, you can include your children onto your one application. Now, it says the children up to the age of 18. It's not actually true. You can have children that are not children, but your children, yeah, but not child that are in university. So they can be 20, 21, as long as they're in education and you can prove that they're dependent on you. They can be older than 18. But you can essentially include your children, your spouse or your partner, and you can also include your parents if they're aged over 65 and that they are dependent on you, and you can prove that they're dependent. And this is where the expertise we have comes into this, because we know what you need to prove that they are dependent. So we have a legal team. We use Orient's legal team, and essentially that they'll tell you what you need to do to prove that. So you can have one investment for as little as 350,000, and include your children, and include your spouse, and include your partner, and include your parents, all on that one application for 350,000. You don't need one each, one for each partner. So really, it's such a good option, the Spanish Golden Visa, if you can get it, because you can actually start a new life for your family. And once you've got the Golden Visa, you have the rights, which I'll come on to live, to work, to retire in that country, the right to the pensions, the right to the healthcare. So all that sort of thing you will get. Now, the interesting thing as well, and this has changed because it's a bit of an old slide here, the Spanish passport now is ranked number 2 in the world for strength. So in terms of the strength of the passport and all the benefits it gives you, it's ranked second as of 2024. So you might not convert it to a passport, as I say, but in 10 years or 2 years, you can do, and you would end up with a very strong passport. And I'll come on to what you'd need to do that. Okay. So let's look into why Spain. It's probably a little bit obvious this, but because this is why you're watching it. But why Spain? Well, I've lived in Spain for, just to give you a bit of background for me, I've lived in Spain for around 6 years now. I moved from the UK. The quality of life in Spain is fantastic, and it's not just the weather here. Obviously, is a big factor of it. I'm down the south of Spain, as I say, in the Malaga region. We've got an office here in Malaga. We've actually got, just to let you, we've got 25 offices all around the world as a company, but I'm based in the Malaga office down here in the south of Spain. Sun shines pretty much every day. It's a great location because you can drive to Portugal in around about 2.5, 3 hours. Go via Seville from where I am here. You can be in Portugal in about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You can drive obviously up to France as well. The weather's fantastic, and very much everything in Spain is very laid back, which is is just a nice way to live. It's also the second most visited country by international tourists. I think most people have visited Spain, partly for the weather, but just it's such a nice, the beaches here are lovely. The locations, the scenery here is lovely as well. The people are lovely. The food is lovely. It's the 4th biggest economy in the EU and 14th in the world. And that's quite interesting because certainly since I've been here, I've seen Spain change. Certainly maybe around sort of 5 or 6 years ago, things were a little bit more difficult, not just here, but certainly in a lot of places. But in the last couple of years, you've really seen industry opening again. Things such as the commercial properties, the shops on the side of the roads, things are opening back up considerably over the last few years. So it's certainly starting to really grow here in Spain as well. And again, with your Golden Visa, you have the right to work here as well. So it's not just, retire and live here. You can work here, you can get a job, or you can become self-employed here as well. Voted the 5th best country in the world to live in. 6th best retirement destination in 2023, the 7th best public healthcare system. Interesting this because my wife's parents also live over here in Spain, and they use the healthcare system all the time. And it is really good. The only issue you ever have is with the language. But a lot of them, they bring translators in if you need them. Obviously, if you're going to live over here, you learn the language anyway. But the healthcare system is fantastic. So it is a really good place to retire. So bear that in mind as well. A little bit of background about the Spanish Golden Visa, just to sort of give you, information you might not already know. The Spanish Golden Visa actually started back in 2013, so it's been going about 11 years now, and we've had well over 15,000 applications approved for the Golden Visa, and that's actually raised around 3.5 billion in terms of funds. It's actually over that now. I think it's more like it's way over 4 billion. So it's raised a lot of money for the government as well, which is kind of, I suppose, a bit of a quandary is to getting rid of the golden visa. It does obviously lose a bit of money for the economy here, but obviously it does potentially affect house prices. So that's the argument either side. But it's raised a lot of money for Spain. Um, but the beauty of the Spanish golden visa, and I'll say it again, is you don't need to spend any time in Spain, which is really quite unique. Most other programs you would have to spend, like Portugal, a minimum amount of time every year in order to keep your visa. Now, there's no time needed in Spain, but if you did want to convert it to citizenship, so this is going from the residency to citizenship in 10 years or 2 years, there is minimum requirements that you need to stay to make that change, which is fair because you need to show that you want to get that passport, that you want to live in that country. But if you just want the card, you just want the golden visa, then essentially you don't need to spend any time in Spain at all. So you can start to make plans to do it now, and you can get that visa and not need to come over here for however long. Any non-EU citizen can apply. I mean, EU citizens can apply, but it's not so much point in doing that. So any non-EU citizens can apply. We get a lot of people from the US, from the UK, China, well, Canada, really all over, because obviously the global mobility it gives you, because you have the right to travel visa free as well around Europe. But you've got to have no criminal record. Now, just to clarify that, I mean, if there's minor offences, then that's really not going to be an issue. But we're talking about, any sort of serious convictions. You're just going to have a clean criminal record. Then, as I mentioned before, you can include your spouse, you can include your children, and you can include your parents all onto that one application, which, is a fantastic, really. It's one investment to get that benefit for all of your family. And the benefits, and this is it. So you've got the right to live, to work over here in Spain. You can freely travel amongst all of the 26 Schengen countries. Now, what I mean by that, so just to clarify about this, if you're a citizen, if you hold a passport, then you can move around the EU and stay as long as you want in any single EU country, not just Spain. You could go across to Portugal because you've got the Spanish passport. You can set up a business, live there, as long as if you've got the passport. If you've just got the golden visa, you can stay as long as you want in Spain. You can live and work and stay in Spain. But if you do go across, say to Portugal, you do have the 180 day, the 90 and 180 day rule. Okay, so you can stay there for 90 days, but then you need to go back for 90 days in order to kind of reset your 90 days. So you can spend 90 days over there in a 180-day period. Where that benefits a lot of people, if, for example, you're from the USA or Canada or somewhere far away, you can reset by going back to USA, which is actually more of a hassle for a lot of people. But let's say you went to Portugal for 90 days, you can go back to Spain and stay in Spain to reset instead of having to go back to your home country by having the golden visa. So it does make it better. But furthermore, for a lot of countries like people from the US and Canada, Australia, and countries like that, you need to get visas as well quite often to come to some of these EU countries. Once you've got the golden visa, it's visa free. It's visa free travel. You don't need a visa. So I went across to Portugal last week, and you literally just drive up, you drive over across the border. There isn't any passport checks anyway, which raises a completely different question, because how they monitor where you are is really difficult anyway. Because once you've got that golden visa, you drive to another country, no one really knows how long you're there for. That's where it becomes very complicated. But bear in mind as well, and I'm going off the point here a little bit, in terms of there is a difference between having the residency card, so the golden visa card, and actually being tax resident. You don't actually have to become tax resident in Spain. You can have the card, but as long as you don't spend more than half a year here, you don't need to become tax resident in Spain if you don't want to. There are benefits with being tax resident, but there you go. That's another thing. So you don't have to be tax resident, but once you stay more than half a year, you do become tax resident. We do have advice that can help you with that when you move. So if people do need, tax advice, investment advice as well, tax advice, we do have in-house tax advisors that can help you as well. You can establish a business in all of the Schengen countries as well. So it's not just you can set up a business in Portugal. Again, you need a bit more advice around that. There are various benefits in terms of the tax regime here. We're not specifically tax advisors, but you might have heard of things such as the Beckham rule. So there are potentially tax benefits for expats. as well, where you can actually get your tax down quite a lot by living here and becoming tax resident as well. And as I said before, you get access to the healthcare, you get access to the pensions here, all of which are incredibly good schemes to be part of. So there's many benefits to becoming a golden visa holder here in Spain. Just a few of the myths and facts as well. I think I've covered most of this, but just to run through it, because it probably just sort of help consolidate it in your mind. Okay, one of the myths is you have to spend any time in Spain to maintain residency. As I say, there's no minimum stay requirements to have the golden visa and to maintain a golden visa. You don't have to spend any time in Spain other than doing the biometrics I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Only residential real estate applies. No, you can have any type of real estate. This is why we look at commercial. You could even buy a parking space for 500,000 and that would qualify. It can be any type of real estate asset. Commercial makes the most financial sense. But for example, if you're watching this and think, well, I know where I want to live in Spain and I'm going to move there. If you bought a property for 500,000 or two properties for 250,000 each, that would qualify you because you've hit that minimum criteria. There are no limitations in where you can invest, so it's not just mainland Spain. You can do the Balearics and the Canaries as well. I think we kind of covered that some people think the process is long and vague. It's not. It's actually the fastest process amongst all the EU programs because you're actually issued your residency with only 21 days. But you need to, first of all, get the asset that gets you the qualification to get the golden visa. And obviously, that's where we help you. We need to get that done quickly so that we can then get down to that 21 days. The Spanish program is expensive. It's not true. Aside from doing the initial investment, which I know is not cheap, but the actual additional costs are minimal. So, for example, getting a TIE card is 73 euros. Renewing it is very cheap. We're not talking thousands. You're talking hundreds. To renew it every 5 years, it's very good. And the other one we've covered is about the living time in Spain to qualify for citizenship. So in order to be a passport holder, how long do you have to live in Spain? It's essentially you can get it in 2 years if you're an ex-Spanish colony, and I'll come on to that now because it's probably the interesting part for some of you. If you want a Spanish passport, so if you are ex-Spanish colony, and these are the countries that are ex-Spanish colony passports, so Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And in addition, you've got Andorra and Portugal. All of these are considered to be ex-Spanish colony. Some people do say to me, oh, sure, Brazil is. Yes, it is. Even though it might not be, if you look at some of the histories, it's considered ex-Spanish colony. So when we apply for you on your behalf, if your passport or the main applicant's passport is an ex-Spanish colony passport, so one of those passports, then in 2 years' time, as long as you spend over 6 months of the year in Spain, you can change that to the passport. Then your spouse, the year after, because they're married to you, so year 3, they are married to somebody with a Spanish passport, can then piggyback onto your passport and they can become a passport holder themselves. So you, within 3 years, can both have a Spanish passport if you are from them countries. If not, then obviously that's fine. You've got the 10-year. Now with the 10-year, it's a little bit different. And I'll come on to that. So what you need to do in order to get the passport is you'll need to do a language level test, which is a B2 basic language level test. You'd kind of want to be able to speak the basic language anyway if you're coming over here. So you need to do a language level test. You need to do a cultural exam as well. Again, it's not particularly difficult. And you need to, as I say, if you're an ex-Spanish colony, minimum of 2 years living over 6 months a year in those 2 years here, and that will qualify you. Or if you're not ex-Spanish colony passport, the last 5 years, you've got to spend over 6 months a year. So let's say you're now thinking, well, I'm not going to move over for a couple of years. That's fine. You can have your residency card and you've started that 10-year clock. So you've started the 10-year clock to get citizenship. But after 5 years, you then have to come over and spend more than 6 months a year if you ultimately want to change it to a Spanish passport, which you may not want to do anyway. The extra benefits might, if you're thinking of living and working here in Spain or retiring here, you might not be bothered so much about having the EU passport and moving unrestricted between the countries, but it's just worth bearing that in mind. It says third best passport. It's the second best passport in the world. I checked that at the beginning of the year. But again, needless to say, it's a very strong passport to have, the Spanish passport. And then once you've got that passport, you can travel to 190 countries around the world, visa free, and you can live and you can work anywhere in the EU. And that's a massive draw for a lot of people as well. Now, the ways that you can, I'm conscious of time here. Okay, so the ways that you can apply and get the golden visa. Okay, so real estate, 500,000, but we can do it for 350,000. Equity in a business, you have to invest 1 million. You can put 1 million into a bank deposit or investment fund, that's 1 million, or 2 million into government bonds. Needless to say, the real estate is the most popular option because obviously with real estate, it's the cheapest way in, and you can do it for as little as 350,000, not 500,000, if you do the rental income paid up front, which again we put together. It's tried and tested. It's proven. We've put lots and lots of applications through. It works. We've got a 100% success rate with it. These are the ways you do it. Now, pay attention to this because these are the ways essentially that you can do this. Okay. Now, these are the options that we offer. And again, I don't think I have time for questions at the end. I will say that because I've got about 15 minutes left, but it's really important to go through these bits here. And anyone that has any questions, grab my number at the end, WhatsApp or message me. And it might not be me that replies. I might get my assistant to contact you because we're really busy, but we will contact and book you in and speak to you. These are the options. So you can go for a residential property on the right-hand side here for 500,000, okay? And your average rental yield on a residential property is around 2 to 3%. That's roughly what you'll get on renting out a residential property here, roughly speaking. Now, the issue around residential properties is when you buy a residential property in Spain, depending on the region, you can pay anywhere between 8% and 11.5% as transfer taxes on that 500,000 property. So ultimately, that's going to be around 40,000 more than what you'd pay on a commercial property, which is more like 1.5%. So straight away, your outlay on buying a residential property is going to be around 40,000 more than a commercial property. Now, that is absolutely fine if you are buying a residential property because you know you want to live in it and you're moving over there to go in that property. That's fine because you know you're going to pay. They're going to pay that anyway at some point to get that property. But if you're just buying a property to get you the golden visa and you might then sell it next year or in a couple of years' time, it doesn't make sense to do that because you've straight away wasted 40,000 on something you're going to ultimately sell. So commercial properties become far more attractive. And it basically point four, it's basically an irrational, it's a rational investment decision versus an emotional decision. People like to buy residential because they think, oh, I like a house because I can see what it looks like. And commercial properties, maybe it might be a bit more ugly. But ultimately, a commercial property is far more, makes more sense because a commercial asset, if you look on the left-hand side, the transfer taxes are about 1.5 to 2.5%, so they're straight away a lot less. That you have long-term leases with your tenants as well, so you have tenants in there for long periods of time, and your average rental yield is more like 4 to 5%. So you get a higher rental yield, and then you can have the package having that fully managed for you. So you don't actually have to get involved in the management side of it because that can all be done for you. So you effectively get passive income coming in of 4 to 5%. You can have it managed on your behalf, get your taxes filed on your behalf. You get that all done for you, get an income coming in, and ultimately it's cost you 40,000 less than if you've done the residential route and you've got a passive income. Now, what we've done is introduced this 350,000 option, and it's basically our turnkey solution. So the idea is you pay 350,000, you're paid 150,000 rental income up front, which is the equivalent of 3% per year for 10 years, and you're paid that up front to give you the 500,000. Okay, it's a 10-year contract if you like, though, because you've been paid the rental income up front. You've got to kind of hold on for it to 10 years. You can get out of it after 5 years, but there's various penalties because you've got to pay back some of the rental income that you paid up front, as you can imagine. So it doesn't suit everybody, but it does suit some people. Now, effectively, you're paid 3% per year up front, and you arguably could get 4 to 5% if you bought a property for 500,000 yourself. But the reason there's a difference is there's no risk on you on the 350,000 option. Whether it's tenanted or not is not your concern. All the upkeep of that property is paying for repairs, anything like that. Not your responsibility. It's done by the management company that we use, not on you. So there's no risk from that point of view. And all the taxes are to do with the property side of it. All the taxes to do with the property are filed and paid on your behalf. So you have no tax liability under that. You essentially have that asset, forget about it. And there are various exit routes on it, which I'll come on to. So you have more flexibility with the 500,000, you get your passive income, but you can do this 350,000 option, which is very attractive for a lot of people. I don't want to overcomplicate things now, but there is also another option you can do as well. We kind of got the idea from the Portugal side of things, where it's actually a hotel option. There's a hotel chain here in Spain called Soho Boutique Hotels. They've got 28 hotels around Spain. There's one near here. They're building a new one in Madrid, and we've actually got a similar package that we can do on that. Whereas you pay 500,000, you physically have to pay 500,000 on that option, but you are paid rental income up front. So you're given 150,000 up front. So basically, you then only have put in 350,000, and then at the end of the 10 years, you get a guaranteed buyback by the hotel of 500,000. So you know in 10 years' time you're going to make 500,000 for your 350,000 outlay. Then there's very tax issues to think around that, so we'd have to talk it through. But that's another option where you've got a guaranteed buyback on the hotel option. But the same kind of principle as the middle option. So the 350,000 leaseback option. So this is an example. We only look in areas such as Barcelona and Madrid because, for obvious reasons, these are areas that you know are going to have a very strong rental desire. You're going to have very good increase in the prices there. And we look at things, anything from catering to retail to bars to offices, and we will source these options, and we will send you the list that we have. But it doesn't matter what you choose, it would still be the same principle. You would invest, it's 500,000 investment property. You're paid 150,000 up front, which is the 3% per year for the 10 years. And then we could start the process. Once that's in your name, it'd be put into your name. We can then obviously go ahead and apply for the golden visa on your behalf. Now, just to let you know the 350,000 option, how that works. Okay, essentially after 10 years, you have three options. Let's say you've paid your 350,000 plus the costs of doing it. Depending on how many applicants, the costs vary, but it can be anything. It's normally around 20,000 more, just to give you a rough idea. Complete transparency. That covers all your transfer taxes, all your legals, opening the bank account. It's normally around that sort of figure. We can give you quotes and that sort of thing. But a buyback option. So essentially, option one, you can actually exercise a buyback option of 350,000. So it doesn't represent a great investment. So you pay 350,000. In 10 years' time, we guarantee that you can we buy that back off you for 350,000. In reality, is that a great investment? No, because you paid them 350,000. In 10 years' time, you're only going to get 350,000 back. You haven't made any money. Not a great investment. But the reason we put that in is if there was some massive disaster in the real estate market over this 10 years, you know, at the very least, you'll get your money back. So it's there for that reason. Will anyone exercise it? Probably not. But does it offer reassurance? Completely. It gives you that complete reassurance. What most people will do, because after 10 years, you've been paid, you've had your rental income up front, but the property is yours. So you can then sell it on the open market, and we can facilitate that for you. So you can sell your commercial property. Bear in mind, over 10 years, you're looking at properties in Barcelona and Madrid. You're going to see quite an increase in the value over that period of time. So in itself, it's an investment after 10 years. It's almost like a pension scheme. You know you can then sell this property. You can either get 350,000 back, or you can sell the property at the open market, get a really good price for it, and actually have had a really good investment. As I say, again, that's why we only look at Madrid and Barcelona. If people ask me, we won't look at other areas, particularly at the moment, because we are just focusing on people that are interested in those areas. We can maintain ownership of the asset as well. So what you might want to do, and we've got some people who want to do this, that at the end of the 10 years, you can keep the asset and you can actually rent it out yourself, and we can manage it for you if you wanted to, or you can rent it out, or you can use the property yourself. It's really up to you. After that 10 years, it's yours. We've designed this as being a 10-year package. We really have to again, full transparency on this. But if you wanted to get out of it, we have included an option. We don't want to encourage people to do it, but you can do. So if after year 5 you think, actually, I want to sell this property, you can do, but you'd exercise the guaranteed buyback at 175,000. So essentially, it's not a great investment, but you would get some money back after year 5 if you just wanted to get out of it. And every year that amount goes up to 210,000 the next year, 245,000 the next year, and so on and so forth, until after year 10 you've got the guaranteed 350. Okay, so it just gives you, we only put that in there so that people didn't feel completely locked in. With a hotel option I mentioned earlier, you are locked in. There's no getting out of that one. You've got the property, you pay your 500,000, you get your 150,000 back, but then you've got guaranteed buyback of 500,000, but there's no early exit. Okay, so they're the exit options. So I think it's a really attractive package, and a lot of people are interested in that side of things. The other option for some people watching this, and again, very popular, is you just go for a straightforward 500,000 and you don't have to worry about restrictions. So if you buy a 500,000 property, it's completely flexible. You can sell it in a year's time and 2 years' time, particularly if you've got an ex-Spanish colony passport, because once you've got citizenship, you don't actually no longer need to have the asset. So if you think in 10 years' time or 2 years' time, you don't need the asset anymore. And that's why we designed the 10-year package for the commercial. It's because at the end of the 10 years, you don't actually need to hold that asset anymore. So you could sell it then and then not get anything else. And then you've got your passport. So that's why it was designed like that. But if you've got the 2-year passport in 2 years, or you just simply want to have more flexibility, then we look at properties 500,000 plus in Barcelona and Madrid. The only issue we have is it's quite hard to find properties at that value now, for obvious reasons, because people are looking at that. So they might not always be 500,000 exactly. We do our best to go out and find you these properties and negotiate on your behalf, do the due diligence, all that sort of thing. And this is an example of one we did, well, it's quite a while ago now, but that was a 600,000 property. It was called Bipolar. That was in Madrid, and it gave the client a rental income of 3,050 a month. So they've got a passive income coming in. They can select the management package on that one. You can opt in or opt out to the management package on that one. With the 350 option, it's included. With the 500,000, you can opt in or out. You might want to manage it yourself, but that's another one. But you have full flexibility. You can get rid of it anytime you want. And as I mentioned before, there's not a slide on this, but there is the hotel option. As I say, with the hotel option, you do actually have to pay 500,000, but you immediately get 150,000 back. You've got to be a bit mindful of that option because you're being paid physically that income back. It's got to be treated like income. So there's some withholding tax on that. With the commercial option I mentioned for 350,000, not the hotel, but just a commercial asset, there isn't, because you're not physically paid the money. So it's a different way of doing it. But there's no right or wrong to any of these options, but these will all get you to go on visa. And we do the start to end process for this as well. So we do the whole lot, whatever package you do. So I am short of time. I'm just looking at the clock now. Yeah, so I'm literally approaching the hour. So I haven't got time to do the questions and answers. What I will say to people to do is take a note of my number. I put my number in there because I did have my email on here, but then when I'm getting emails, I'm going to upload this to my YouTube channel. So if you search Sam Daines on YouTube, expat advice, or Sam Daines, put Golden Visa Sam Daines, you'll see my YouTube channel. Have a look on there. I've done videos on this for the last couple of years, really, right from beginning of last year. So this is obviously the most up-to-date one. But if you take my number there and send me a text or WhatsApp me, even if I don't reply to your WhatsApp, bear in mind I get quite a lot of messages, I will pick it up and I'll pass it over to my assistant, and she will make contact with you. So it's always useful I'd have your number there. I'll get her to contact you, and then obviously can book you in, see what your requirements are. Just to clarify, we do the whole package. We can't just, if you've already got properties, we can't, just do the golden visa side of it. The service we offer is the whole package, from finding the asset and actually going through, the whole process for you. So that's what we do. As I said before, we've got a 100% success rate on doing this. Here we are, 100%. So there we go. Yeah, 100% success rate on doing this. So, you should feel confident in what we're doing. We will get you the golden visa. We have time to do it. Just be mindful of it. I've got your email. I will keep you updated with any information I have. But as I said, please contact me with any questions. I have to go now because literally I've got an appointment to go on to. But hopefully you found that useful. Let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you found that useful.